Hey guys, welcome back to the Bull Combo. Today I'm coming at you with my top 10 metal hardcore albums of 2017, so stick around and see what makes the list. Alright guys, so there's been a ton of really good albums that came out this year, and it was actually a little hard for me to make this list, but in the end, I chose the 10 albums I enjoyed listening to the most this year. I'm not going to necessarily say that the best albums of the year, I'm just going to tell you guys, you know, honestly, that these are my 10 favorite albums that have come out this year. So, let's get started. Number 10 is Born of Osiris' The Eternal Rain. This is actually a re-record of their debut album, The New Rain, and it's a sick album. It's got one new song on it. But just, you know, hearing the re-recorded versions of these songs are awesome. And I think it was really cool of Born of Osiris to go back in and just redo their first album, since it was such an awesome album. So that starts off number 10 on the list. Born of Osiris is The Eternal Rain. Number 9 is going to be Betraying the Martyrs' newest album, The Resilient. This actually came out just over the edge of 2017 in the early part of January. So it's almost a year old now, but this album is really good. I thought it was a pretty good step forward for Betraying the Martyrs, and it didn't really receive a lot of attention. I'm not sure why that was, whether it was just not well received, or whether it wasn't really marketed very well. But yeah, Betraying the Martyrs' newest album, The Resilient, is a really good album, a lot of really catchy songs. They still stay really heavy, but I think they really experimented a little bit more with clean singing in some of the songs than they even had done previously, and it really pays off. I think the album sounds really good. There's a lot of really catchy, memorable songs on it. So number 9 is Betraying the Martyrs, The Resilient. Number 8 is going to be Blacklist by DangerKIDS. It's DangerKIDS' newest album. It came out earlier this year. DangerKIDS are one of those bands that aren't really huge right now, so you've either heard of them or you haven't heard of them. I don't think they're actually signed to any label. They were signed to Rise Records on their last album, and then they dropped off Rise Records and came out with their newest album, Blacklist. I do believe they even have a song that's kind of geared toward Rise Records and possibly some animosity they had with that label. But nevertheless, Blacklist is a great album. If you look back through my previous videos, you'll probably see a lyric video for the song Blacklist off of the album Blacklist. So if you can take a moment, go ahead and check that lyric video out. Again, the album's great, lots of catchy songs. They very much have that like Linkin Park style with the rap and then the metal over top of it, but I think it does sound really good, and they've definitely found their own sound on this album, so it doesn't quite sound like a Hybrid Theory 2.0 kind of thing. On this album, there's a little bit more exploration with styles and sounds, so they don't quite have the Linkin Park carbon copy, and I think it really just sounds good. So that's Blacklist by DangerKIDS. Album number 7 is going to be Phantom Anthem by August Burns Red. This album actually snuck past me. I didn't get a chance to listen to it until about a week ago, a few days ago. It came out October 6th, and I had known it was coming out. I had heard their first song, The Frost, a few months ago, back before the album dropped, and for some reason, when the album did drop, either there wasn't a lot of marketing behind the drop, or I just missed it somehow. But yeah, it came out a few weeks ago, so I did get a chance to listen to this album, and holy moly, August Burns Red really returned to their roots quite a bit on this album, I think. It's super heavy. It still has those cliche August Burns Red sections that kind of calm down and slow down, and bring in the really melodic instrumentals, but there's a lot of heavy-hitting songs on this album. It really has a vibe very similar to their second album, Messengers. I feel like there's a few songs on this album that really remind me of Messengers, with the really hard-hitting, heavy low end, the really aggressive style riffs. Some of them they haven't written like that in a while, so I think this was a really nice breath of fresh air for August Burns Red. In that they decided to return to a previous sound a little bit that I think a lot of people would be really pleased to hear. So, Phantom Anthem is number 7 by August Burns Red. Number 6 is Cold. It's the newest album by Gideon. Gideon is one of those bands that took me a little bit to get into. I actually didn't get into Gideon until this album. It's not that they weren't a good band. I saw them at Warped Tour last year, and they were great. I thought they put on a really solid performance. It's just that there's a lot of bands to catch up on sometimes, and you know, there's hit or miss with the ones that you get a chance to listen to. So Gideon really didn't get their time to shine in my stereo until this year. But when I did check out their newest album, Cold, I was super impressed with it. I thought that it had a little bit more diversity than some of the stuff I'd heard from them previously. It's still very much in that hardcore vein, they're very much a hardcore band with some metalcore overtones. But yeah, Cold, it's a great album. It's got some really catchy songs. There's a couple guest vocals on there, one of them by Knocked Loose vocalist, and the song itself is really sick. So if you're into some music that's geared toward more on the hardcore side of things, I would definitely recommend checking out Gideon's newest album, Cold. I don't think you'll be disappointed at all. I was really impressed. So number 5 is Volume's newest album, Different Animals. This is another one that came out a few months ago with a really cool direction. Just the entire album has a lot of diversity. There's hip hop, there's metal, there's clean singing, almost R&B style singing. They obviously have a new vocalist who just recently joined the band over, I believe, the last half of the cycle from their last album. So I think this is the first album where they really got to leverage their newest vocalist, and his clean vocals are awesome. Really adds so much environment to the songs, and he fits the band so well. I think just the dynamic between the two vocalists is really good. Again, a lot of creativity on this album. There's some hip hop, there's some R&B style singing, there's some much heavier style singing. It's just all over the place. Some really, really catchy songs. Finite is, I know the chorus to that song is just ridiculously catchy. So if you haven't heard Volumes previously, I would definitely recommend checking out Different Animals. It's my number 5 album of the year, and I still listen to it from time to time. I think I was listening to it last week, actually. So number 5, Different Animals by Volumes. Number 4 is Graveyard Shift by Motionless in White. Motionless in White is one of those bands that I've been listening to since they came out, and they've obviously gone through some sound changes. Their first album was primarily just metalcore with some horror style metal kind of interweaved in there. But their newest album, Graveyard Shift, it's definitely very much in the same vein as all of their last couple albums. I feel like it's a continuation of that. The sound hasn't changed too much. It's very much the electronic. There's some hardcore in there. There's electronics. There's a lot of metal, industrial metal. There's a couple songs on this album that are hit or miss. There's one song with Jonathan Davis from Korn that I really wasn't a huge fan of. But overall, there's some other really solid songs on the album that kind of balance it off really well. Soft is a good song, and so is 570, Eternally Yours. So there's a couple really good songs on this album that I think just, even though there's a few songs that aren't so great, the stronger songs on the album really balance it out and round it out. So if you can get past the 1 or 2 songs that are a little unlistenable, then you'll really enjoy this album. I think there's some super catchy lyrics on it. Obviously, Chris Motionless is really good at writing very, very interesting and catchy vocal hooks, and this album's no different. So yeah, number 4 is Motionless in White's Graveyard Shift. Number 3 is going to be EMMURE's newest album, Look at Yourself. This is another one that came out earlier this year. I actually got the chance to see EMMURE on Warped Tour this year, and anytime I get the chance to see EMMURE, it's a good opportunity. EMMURE puts on an awesome live show, but aside from their live show, this album was a really big return to form for the band. If you aren't familiar with the story behind EMMURE, after their last album, all of the members left with the exception of Frank, their vocalist, and he was able to bring in new members, mostly members from Glass Cloud and the Tony Danza Tap Dance Extravaganza, Josh Travis being the guitarist, and I mean the results were awesome. Their newest album was super heavy, and while it did still have a lot of the chugs that people complain about, having Josh Travis behind the axe I think really brought some credibility to EMMURE. And they definitely step outside the box a little bit on this album in terms of some of the creativity and some of these riffs. Obviously is a little bit higher and a higher echelon compared to stuff you would have heard on their previous albums, but the album as a whole is just really good. It's really aggressive, it's really catchy. Frank obviously is just really good at writing a lot of maybe divisive lyrics, or lyrics that incite a lot of conversation and discussion, and I think that's something that, like him or hate him, EMMURE has always been a very polarizing band. So I really enjoyed this album. I thought it was really heavy. It really just was a nice feel-good album to go into the summer with. And if you're really into the heavier deathcore, hardcore vibes, then I would definitely recommend checking out EMMURE's newest album, Look at Yourself. Alright, we're down to the last 2 albums. My number 2 album of 2017 is going to be Deadweight by Wage War. Wage War is one of those bands that kind of burst onto the scene a couple years ago. They had an amazing debut album, which usually isn't the case for a band that's first coming onto the scene. Usually it takes them a couple albums to really find their sound, but Wage War was one of those bands that came out from the gates, just guns a-blazing, and they were able to find their sound quickly. They understand their comfort zones. They stay inside of it. They're super creative, and Deadweight was an awesome step forward from Blueprints, which was their last album. And Deadweight, I actually have a review of Deadweight here on my channel if you want to go back and look at it previously. You can see some of my extended thoughts on the album. Just a great album all the way through. All the songs have so much depth, so much meaning, so much replay value. And I was just really pleased with the album. I listened to it for, a month and a half straight and didn't get sick of it. And the only reason I'm not listening to it now is because there's been some newer music that I've had to listen to that's come out since then. And I would go back to it at any point and be happy to listen to it. It's a great album, start to finish. I think that they started and ended the album very strongly, which some bands aren't able to do. Either the beginning or the end can sometimes seem a bit weak. So I think this album is one of those few albums that every single song is good. Every single song makes sense. Even when they step outside their comfort zone, it sounds great. And it was just a big success. So Deadweight by Wage War is my number 2 album of the year. Alright guys, so my number 1 album of the year, this is ironic because I just posted a video review of this album, but my number 1 album of the year is going to be Veil of Maya's newest album, False Idol. Now I'm a little partial to this album because it just came out, so if I did this video 4 months from now, I may have a different opinion on it, but right now I'm just enjoying this album the most of any album I've heard this year. I really like the creativity on it. I think that Mark, their guitarist, took a huge step forward in the creativity of the riffs he used. Not necessarily the complexity or the technicality, because they're always going to be a technical band, but just the creativity behind it, the structure of the songs, the arrangement of the riffs. I think everything sounds really good on this album. The songs are super catchy, the choruses are awesome. Lucas, their new vocalist that came in on the last album, he just kills it, start to finish, and if you were excited about Matriarch, you knew what was coming with this newest album, and they didn't disappoint. They really took the direction I think everyone thought they were going to take, and I love it. I think it paid off greatly, and there's a couple times on this album that they venture outside their comfort zone, go out on a limb, but I don't think at any point did they lose the listener, and I don't think at any point were their attempts in vain. So, awesome album. My number 1 album of 2017. There's still about 2 months left in the year, so I did a quick search to see what other albums are planning on coming out this year, and I wasn't able to see any other albums that are coming out this year that I can particularly think of would make it onto this list. If for some reason I come across another one, maybe I'll do another video in 4 or 5 months, the early part of next year, to revisit this list, and we'll see where we're at. I hope you guys like this list. Comment down below and let me know if you think something's too high, if you think something's too low, if you think something shouldn't be on this list, if you think the album was just terrible. I'm happy to hear what you guys have to say. I love the opinions and comments, so make sure to keep those coming. If you like this content, make sure to give it a like. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe. And as always, guys, we will see you soon.